Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
How are you, Terrence?
Doing great. Doing great.
Are you as excited to be here as I am?
Of course. Of course.
That's one of the first skills you got to learn as the school administrator. You got to learn how to fake sincerity. If you can fake sincerity, you've got it made. You can win in this business. Well, I certainly hope everybody had a good break and time back. We could have started last week, but y'all know the deal. Y'all didn't need to have to come back and go through a orientation and all that business that you do the first week. I figured we'd just go through all that tonight. Won't take long. We give you another week to get. I guess everybody's back in school last week, started back, so I know that's hectic. And most places have acquiesced to the local lobbyists in terms of is anybody able to finish first semester before the Christmas break? Or you come back for 3 weeks and then have the end of the semester?
I'm in South Carolina. We finished the semester before break.
That's such a wise thing.
Yeah,
It's
nice.
thing.
Especially as a high school teacher, getting those exams done.
Absolutely.
It's nice.
When I was senior high chairman in Charlotte, I was senior high principal, I was chairman of the group. 1 year and 1 year only, I got control of the calendar committee, and we finished the first semester before Christmas. Never again. The vacation lobby screamed and yelled and pitched a fit because we had to start back in August to do that. And you know, the vacation rentals, the high season is June, July, and August. They double the prices on all the vacation rentals and on those. And so the vacation lobby, and if you're not familiar with North Carolina law, that very next year, not only did they ban us from doing that, they passed a law that schools couldn't start back before August 25th. And so that would be me. I'm to blame for that, unfortunately. That was a while back, but yes, that's exactly how that came about. That was the best year we ever had in the school business in North Carolina, was when we got to do that. And so for those of you in North Carolina who don't get to do that, again, I know what it is. You come back and just about time you get started again, then you have to, you do the class changes, especially in high school. If you're running a 4x4, you get a whole new group of students, and you're trying to finish up the last group. You're trying to do end of course testing, and oh my Lord, January, it makes January just awful. If you don't end before Christmas break, first semester, January is just the worst month of the year. I get it. I know. Been there, done that. Got the t-shirt. Yeah. So, all right, I've got 7 o'clock. We're going to go ahead and get started. Hopefully, Dr. Griffin Jordan will join us, but let me share my screen. Welcome to Mels 603. This is the C2 section. We'll be meeting on Tuesday nights at 7. Let me share my screen. We'll start with the course overview. I'm going to go through this very quickly. If you got any questions, just let me know. All right, so Dr. Josh Sane and Dr. Anita Jordan work with me this semester. Dr. Griffin Jordan will be with us on Tuesday nights. To that end, she will be leading 4 of the class sessions. She is a sitting principal in Durham Public Schools. She's principal at City of Medicine High School there.
Yeah. It was just at the end of the day, and she said it.
You mute everybody so we can go through this. And so here's my information. Now, things will be a little bit different this semester in terms of we go faster, more things. You'll put your work in the assignment drop boxes and the discussion board for review. I'll grade it immediately. I grade twice a day, morning and evening. I'll turn it around same day. And you don't have to go to your coach unless you need specific help, and I'll send you to the coach if you need that help. Otherwise, you'll work with me directly. We'll go fast, and I do mean fast. We'll keep things moving. Our coaches this semester are here as experts. They're both principals out in the field, central office people. Josh, central office, Anita's just came out of principalship. Josh did. He is central office in Lincoln County. Dr. Griffin Jordan is principal in Durham. These people live it every day. They'll be doing, Dr. Griffin Jordan will be doing 4 lessons for you on things that are most relevant to school administrators. She'll be doing 4 of those, and I'll show you that in a minute. Here's your syllabus. Here's your grading point system. Total points available, 5,000. That's how many points you got to have to get the grades. Here are your case study groups. When you do peer reviews, you don't have to do a video or any of that. You just do written peer reviews of the first 3 tasks of the 2 evidences this semester. That would be OMA and SKIP. You'll do those, but you'll have case studies. So 4 times during the semester, I'll turn it over to y'all. Every group will present the same case that night. So on the first night, team 1, 2, 3, and 4, just like that, will present their case studies. The case studies are here in the menu. There are 4 of them, materials and the drop boxes for them. You'll do a PowerPoint. The first person in the line here is the leader of the group, and then it rotates. Here are the groups that I understand from last semester. If there needs to be any changes to these, please let me know. But you will do case studies. We'll talk about those more next week, about those case studies. And so make sure you understand that you have 2 responsibilities: one, to meet with your group and develop a group PowerPoint for your case study. Second is you'll write a half-page reflection after that. And that reflection, you can tell me, you can tell me that Neely wasn't any good. She was a bad leader, or we didn't get along, or this was terrible, or you can tell me what you learned. And you can, whatever your reflection from the process, that's your half page to tell me whatever you'd like to share with me about going through that case study. These case studies are relevant. They're what's happening. The first one is about grading, which is in the very first law for school principals, is to grade and classify pupils. And so this one's on grading. We have an LGBTQ, we have a finance one, and we have an EC one. Those are the hot spots. Those are the things that'll lose you your job the fastest. So those are the 4 case studies that we'll do this semester. Again, they will be, we'll look at the weekly schedule here. So tonight's introduction, those kinds of things, we'll talk about OMA, master scheduling, that stuff. And then so your first case study will be due in week 4. So we'll talk about case studies next week. I always give you a 2-week notice. And so our first lesson from Dr. Griffin Jordan will be on students' rights, local student handbooks. In week 5, she'll do that lesson. Our second case study will be on week 7. Then Dr. Griffin Jordan, her week, she will do staff evaluation and HR, and then she'll do managing facilities. Case study 4, case study 3 will be on the 10th week. Case study 4 will be on the 14th week. And then she will do her last one, financial management, and I do all the other lessons. And so you'll see how it goes. And so, again, I will talk to you most specifically next week about case studies. So that we can understand what the expectation. Now, if you go to, move it out of the way. If you go to week, what was that? 4. Yep. You'll see a recording from this past fall of the first case study. You can watch the video and see what the expectation is. Now, they're kind of long and drawn out, but you can actually watch. And so you can say, oh, that's what the PowerPoint looks like. That's what the real deal, that's what, made Dale hopping mad and he jumped up and down and yelled and threw stuff, or that's what made him happy and clapped like a seal. You can see the deal right there. All you got to do is click on Zoom session 4 and you can see what a case study looks like, what the presentation is supposed to be about. We'll talk more about those next week, but I want to make sure you understand we will not be doing video peer reviews. We're moving to the next level of virtual communication where you actually collaborate virtually on Zoom, not during class, but on your time to come up with and to create a collaborative project. You have a thing that you have created, which would be your PowerPoint. That is the next level of learning for you. So back to our course overview. So here are your teams that'll be working on those. Here's the Zoom session for Tuesday night. Now, if you can't get enough of class, I include the one from Wednesday night. It'll be the same class. Tuesday night, Wednesday night will just be a repeat. Now you're responsible to come to this one and work with this group, but if something happened and you wanted to try to catch up or you couldn't attend the session live, I have included that. We just had the town hall. We'll do an interviewing session later on this spring where I'll prepare you to interview for jobs this spring, because you'll have your license this summer and you'll be eligible for employment this fall. So I'll do interviewing with you this spring. Interviewing is a skill. It's something that you practice and you learn. There's 4 different kinds that you have to learn, that each of them are completely different, and I'll cover all of that with you. Please make sure that you have done your enrollment verification activity both here and in your 698 internship shell. Make sure that you have completed your EVA. Here are your 2 books. I do highly recommend that you purchase these. If you can't get a 3rd edition, 4th edition will be fine on school law. We're trying to save you $1 there. If you find any of those 3rd editions, they're a little, and then this resource management, just 2, they are a little expensive, but they're not too bad. So that's kind of the overview. I'll pause and catch my breath and see if anybody has, I'm looking in the chat. Anybody have any questions about the overview of what we're going to do this semester? We're going to do the OMA and the SKIP, and we're going to try to start the CAP. OMA and SKIP are required. We've got 4 case studies. I have a principal expert that will be with us to help us to make sure that we, oh yeah, Dr. Griffin Jordan's going to join us later. She's got an open house at her school tonight. That's where she is right now. So that's the course overview. So let's go on down our menu here and let's look at make sure. Yes.
Did you also say the discussion things too? Are those also required?
We're gonna, yes, those are your assignments. We're gonna spend some time on that in just a minute.
Okay.
Let's go down our list here. Yes.
Dr. Lamb, sorry. This is Jessica Wilkins. My group, I'm with Kelly, and Lucinda is in our group. I don't know if she was coming back this semester.
Okay, so do you want somebody else, or you just want to work with Kelly?
I mean, I enjoy working with Kelly. I don't know if she feels the same about me, but Kelly and I like to kind of get on it and get going. We figured that out last semester, but we just didn't know if you knew anything from Lucinda or anything.
I have not heard anything. Let me double check that. That's a good thing. Let's see. She's still on the roll, but she has not logged in. So we'll see how that goes. We'll
Okay,
track
thank
her.
you.
But if she doesn't come, if y'all just want to work as a team, that's fine with me.
Okay.
Some of the best groups I've ever had, were duos. I don't have a problem. If you want somebody else, if somebody else wants to join y'all and get y'all to agree, that would be fine as well. I do not have a problem with that. It usually always kind of works itself out. So some of you who are, if you're maybe not, maybe if you want a different experience, not that you don't like the folks you're with, but if you'd like a different experience, talk with Jessica and Kelly if you see if they want to join them. If not, they're go. Don't let me hold you up. Get if y'all got a rhythm and get your work done and knock it out, that's what counts. That's what counts is done. So
All right, thank you.
thank you. So I've already, make sure that you look at your weekly schedule. Let me pull that back up again. So on your weekly schedule, I've got everything that you're supposed to do that week. So this week you start with your OMA, you start your draft of your OMA, you have to complete discussion board 1. Weekly assignments are due by Sunday night as usual. I'll give you the Monday. That's fine with me if that works for you. But don't let it get back to next Tuesday class time and you hadn't finished this week's assignment. Now we're going to talk about those assignments in just a minute here. There's a lot of coming and going to and froing in these assignments. It's not read it chapter, write a paper. Now, what I have is and it says read these pages in school law, or read this chapter in school law, or I've got the reading that goes along with these things. I'm never going to talk about the reading ever. That's your responsibility, is to do your reading. You got to keep up with your reading. So every week I've got what you need to read and what you need to do. And then the evidence work, I'll work with you on those. But you got to go out and do a lot of coming and going to and fro in this semester on all these activities. None of the assignments are optional. You must complete all these 16 assignments. These are things that you need to know. And the reading will help guide you in that and help remind you of why you're doing that. And when you turn your weekly assignment in and you tell me, here's what I did, what I will do is I'll make a personal comment about something good, bad, or indifferent, but I'll also tell you and remind you what the takeaways were from that. And that correlates back to the reading. I won't say in chapter 2, what I'll say, the takeaway on that is this. This is what you were supposed to have learned from doing that. So it's a practical application of the things that you need to be doing. This is an operations course. The first course that you had was about instruction and personnel, building an action plan to improve instruction. And then you built another action plan to help get personnel ready to deliver that, professional growth plan to help deliver that instruction. We're not doing instruction this semester, we're doing operations. Please remember that. We're doing law and finance. And so everything will feed back to instruction and student achievement, but we're doing operations this semester. You can't do operations and not get out in the field and talk to people and be involved. So that, again, a lot of coming and going to and fro. So let's look at the things that you'll be doing this. So this week, your assignment will be locate copies of your school's emergency plan and the crisis box. How long did it take you to find it? Was it there? Those kinds of things. Was it behind the front desk where it was supposed to be? Then examine a school trip, field trip district policy on field trips. Assuming that you're in charge and a car hits, what do you do? What is your district laid out as a protocol if there's an accident on a field trip? Reflect on the fact that educators have been financially responsible. That's tort liability, that they can sue you. So the deal this semester is I can't keep people from suing you. My job is to keep them from winning. This is about not losing your house. So from time to time, when I make the reference, this is about your house, that's what I mean. This is one of those things you lose your job, like misspending federal money. You don't do that but one time. Now, you could argue whether that's a stiff penalty or not. And, that's kind of a hot topic in the unemployment line. But you're going to learn there's certain things you do not do but once. And so, again, I can't keep people from suing you. But my job is to make sure you win. And you need to understand that they don't just sue the school or the district. They sue you personally now. There is tort liability since 1992. there is tort liability. That means you can be held personally liable and have to pay. You need to understand that. That we're talking about your, you know, your family and your future and your home. Observe student due process. That means you'd have to get with your AP that processes discipline, interview or other school disciplinarian about due process, examine district policy on cyberbullying, attend an IEP meeting, interview the chair of your MTSS team or your intervention team, whichever you want to call it. Interview an administrator concerning HR hiring practices, understanding that the hiring due process on hiring is the same for every district, but who does it is completely different. For example, one of the poor Western districts that I was principal in, I had to do everything. That means I had to advertise, I had to find them, I had to interview them, I had to do the background check, I had to call the references. You know, when I got to go to the big time in Charlotte, I didn't have to do any of it. It was all done in both places. The trick is where you work, who has to do it? Because you can't assume somebody else will, you'll lose your job. This is federal employment law. You have to follow due process. And so you got to find out, how does it work in your district? You also need to find out about employee assistance compensation plans and those things. If you have some of those kinds of things, it severely limits what you can do with people who misbehave that work for you. Yeah. For example, if you've got if you've got employee assistant for drug or alcohol abuse, you can't let them go. Even if they abandon their job, you can't let them go. But if you don't have that, then you can let them go. Those are the kinds of things you got to know. Conduct facilities walkthrough. I've got an assessment inventory that I'll give you if your district doesn't have one. I bet everybody in here, if I ask you how often you've got to do, I'll do a little show of hands here. How often you got to have a fire drill in school? Once a month, right? How often do you have to do a facilities walkthrough and check for fire hazards? How often you have to do that? Twice a month by law, and you have to document it. That's the one that gets you. That's the one that gets you right there. Everybody has the fire drill. Everybody woo woo and goes out. But the one that gets you is when you have a fire and you can't document that every 2 weeks you've been doing a safety check of your facilities. And I mean, very, very comprehensive. That's when they get you. It's law that you have to do that, by the way. It's not Dale's opinion. That's in the law, that every 2 weeks, twice a month. Now, as the new assistant principal, guess whose job that's going to be? That would be you. You will have to do that. You better learn now, and you better learn how comprehensive it is, and you can't take people's word for stuff. There's a lot of pieces and parts to that. Parking, traffic patterns, all that's involved in that too. Do your cars and your buses go together? Do parents get, you have those terrible parents that are always in a hurry and they can't wait in line like everybody else, and they get in the bus line and drop their kids off back at where the buses are. Yeah, things like that. I don't know why everybody in the world thinks that their kids can't ride the bus anymore. When did we start this notion that everybody had to bring their kids to school every day? I mean, it's just like I tell those rich ladies in my Lake Norman neighborhood. I don't know how in the world kids are going to learn about sex if you don't let them ride the school bus. I mean, otherwise you'd have to teach them. I mean, that's an awkward conversation. Just let them ride the bus. They'll know more than you. They don't appreciate that, though, by the way.
Dr. Lamb, what did you call that every 2 weeks? What is that called?
You got to do a facilities walkthrough.
Facility walkthrough, okay.
Facilities walkthrough every 2 weeks. Let me show you the law, by the way. Let me share my screen. So in North Carolina, it's 115C288, duties and responsibilities of the school principal. And so let me move that out of the way. And so let's see. That should be under about week 2. Crisis box, general statutes. Yep. There, I've got the assessment inventory there. So if you go to North Carolina general statutes, and I've got it pulled out separately, but I'm just going to show you. So if 115C is all the education statutes, and they're called titles in South Carolina, by the way, and they correspond. So we go to 115C288, and we click on that. Duties and powers of the principal. These are the responsibilities that you have, and nobody to get to party water. The reason why our first case study is on grading students is because that's the first law is you got to grade. You'll spend more time on that hoorah than anything else you do over parents complaining about grades, or if you're in high school, and Neely can tell you that about who's valedictorian and all, who's going to be the salutator and all that. So right here, to conduct fire drills and inspect for fire hazards, conduct during the first week and thereafter at least once. Okay, is a duty to inspect each of the buildings at least twice a month. Right there, and it has to be documented. And it includes cafeterias, gymnasiums, boiler rooms, storage rooms, auditorium, stage area, and all classrooms, keeping buildings safe, accumulation track. And you have to have 2 copies of the written report every month. You have to document that somebody checked every one of those things twice every 2 weeks. And so this is the one that I put together for Charlotte Mecklenburg. It's been a day since I've been retired, 12 years. It's been a day, but when I was a deputy superintendent, this is what I did there. We'll go back to this. I put this together then. This is the assessment checklist that you're going to need to use in your building. Now, this thing, as I said, this is what from losing your house. We've got traffic control, vehicular and human, bus loading and drop-off zones are clearly defined and they're separated. So the cars can't be with buses. All the things that you have to do about, your security guards, make sure they don't get run over. Do you have people out directing traffic and slowing cars down? All that stuff. Surveillance, do you have cameras, access control? You can't dog down doors or block, do you have doors propped open? How many times have you seen this elaborate ruse to get in the front of the school and buzz you in and all that, and then the door going out to the ball field is somebody's propped it open. You can just walk right in if you go to the side. All those you have to check all those things, all of your safety equipment in labs, communications, boiler rooms. Make sure that your chemicals are not, they're not on the floor. They're not out where kids can get to them. And I'll tell you, stories about this that in my years and different things, your bomb threat crisis, safety provisions. If you got in a building that's got lockers that are no longer in use, or all of them zip tied or locked where kids can't use those to hide bad things, graffiti, fire hazards. This is a comprehensive list of everything that you have to check every 2 weeks and document that you did. Now, some districts have their own, but if you don't, then use this one. It's kind of like a walkthrough checklist. But yes, this needs to be done on a regular, every 2 weeks basis. And as I said, the new AP always gets this job because everybody hates this. Now, one of the things that I have seen done, and I would make sure that I can't recommend strongly enough that you don't do this. How many times do you know that what we've done is we've delegated this to a custodian? Now, this is how the law works, folks. You can delegate activity, but not responsibility. What's the law say about who's responsible for that? That would be the principal. They delegate it to you. You better not, and you better get it done. You better not delegate it to somebody else. And so that has to be done. Again, we can delegate. It's kind of like school fundraising. We can let the PTA do that, but we're still responsible for every dime of that money. One of your activities, your weekly assignments, is to talk to your principal about fundraising. I can't tell you the number of times that I've had folks come back and tell me, well, my principal said we don't do it. We just turned it over to the PTA. They do all of it. Well, that's very good that they do the work. But now don't think for a minute that you're off the hook for the accounting of the money, the receipting, failure to maintain fiscal control. At best, you'll get demoted as a principal. At worst, you'll get fired. Let the PTA go out and embezzle all the money. I mean, they've already replaced the administration at South Meck High School where they've embezzled $250,000 from the booster club. That's one of the reasons why they had a new principal. That is correct. That kind of money, somebody's are going home, not just one. That's the way it works, folks. This is, an adult's game charges an adult's price. Don't forget that. If the money gets gone, they're coming. If somebody gets burned up in a fire, they're coming. If somebody gets hurt, if somebody, I can't tell you. My wife asked me last night. They had an update on the Charlotte News about about Myers Park, and said, didn't you used to have to keep up with that? And I said, yes, ma'am, I did. And I said, the problem is that people would underreport, not report, because there are sanctions for reporting, and we'll go over those this semester too. And I'll explain to you why folks want to discourage girls and other folks from telling the truth and don't want to follow through and those kinds of things, because there's sanctions against the school. In 1991, No Child Left Behind was passed. Said two things: kids don't have to go to schools that are low performing academically or persistently dangerous. There are 16, used to be 17, now 16 acts of crime and violence as defined by the federal government. And 9 of those, if happen in your building and they happen with too much frequency, you lose your job as a principal. And the whole administrative team gets replaced. That's why they don't report. That's why a fight becomes aggressive behavior. That's why a rape becomes consensual. That's why, because there are penalties out there. And so the notion is if you'll take care of the little things, antecedent behavior, if you'll take care of the little things, the big things will take care of themselves. But it's all about you're going to be the person responsible. You're going to be in charge. That responsibility comes back to you. You've got to know what to do and then go and do it. This is not for the faint of heart. This is not, I get to be in charge. Yeah, you do, but that means you have to be in charge as well. That's the corollary. And that responsibility falls to you. It's a tough world. All right, so let me share my screen and go back. So this would be the inventory that you would use that the week that is due. Let's go back to our activities. Okay. EC, exceptional children, HR, facilities walkthrough, school fundraising. That's what I said. How do you do it at your building? Understanding that if they tell you we let PTA, then they don't understand the law. You're always financially responsible. The interview school administrator about the 5 most important steps in school-based budgeting. Now, it doesn't matter what 5 they tell you. What's important is that they know 5, that they actually have a process. Locate a copy of your school budget, and yes, they have to give you one. They are not private. No, this notion that we don't give them out, that's not true. Let me see, and I'll show you as well. To make available school budgets and school improvement plans. The principal shall maintain a copy of the school's current budget and school improvement plan, including any amendments to the plan, and shall allow parents of children in the school and other interested persons, that would be you, to review and obtain such documents according to Chapter 132 of the North Carolina General Statute. So if somebody tells you, oh, we don't give our budget out, that is not true. Law says they will give you that budget on request. They have to have it in the front, have to hand you a copy right then. And you're going to evaluate to see if it has all the different fund sources. There's 4 sources of funds. There's federal money, there's state money, there's local money, and then there's school money. That budget should reflect all 4 of those. And we're going to spend a great deal of time learning about you can spend this for this and that, but not this and that. I mean, knowing what codes, what you can spend money on, and what sources. Again, you don't misspend federal money but one time, and then you're out. All right, so back to our weekly activities. Respond to a case study and examine your policy on harassment in your district. All right, so those activities. Now, where you will find those, as you know, is here under discussion board. So when you open that discussion board, right here they are. There are all of your activities. And remember, those are due Sunday night by 9, or if you can get them in by Monday morning, that's fine. Either way is fine with me, and here all they are. And then here's the places where you put your task of the OMA and skip for review. You can click on discussion board, or you can come here where it says OMA task for peer instructor review will take you to, it's just a hot link that takes you straight to the same place. It takes you straight to the same place. But this is where you will put, this is where your assignments are in discussion board. And this is where you will, when you complete your draft of a task for me to review it, this is where you put it right there. All right, and here are, again, on peer reviewing, you'll do written reviews of the first 3 tasks of both the OMA and the skip. You won't have to peer review anybody's cap. If we get that far, you won't have to do that. Just the first 3 tasks of the OMA and the skip. Just one of the people that's on your team. Just one. You don't do any videos. Remember, the videos are reserved for our case studies, and we're going to talk about them more at length tomorrow night. So let's look at our case studies right quick. And so what I have for a case study is, I have the directions for you, and here's the case. You read it. As I said, I've got may have some documents that go along with it to help spur your memory. You'll put your group project here. There's your assignment drop box. There's your personal reflection. Tell me anything you want. Here's your directions. Here's the case. The one that I've got right here is lesson plan, role of the principal with ethics. What this has got is the law on who grades and classifies students, because the first case is about a teacher who assigned a failing grade to a kid over turning in his brother's homework. Yeah, it's that crazy, but we'll get to it later. But that's what you do. When it's case study time, you click on case study 2. And what you'll find again is where you drop your PowerPoint project, your personal reflection. Here are the directions. Better read Leandro Duke Law, because that's like looking in the back of the math book and getting the answer. That's the answer key right there. And then here's the case itself, and then case 3. Case 3 is LGBTQ, and we've got directions, and here are those things there. And then the 4th one is the inclusion or EC, is your 4th case study. And here it is, directions. There's the case and the basic education plan law that would go along with that. So it's pretty simple. Within the next week or so, you need to get started, get your group together and get started. And again, you know who the leader of each one is. Each week, all the materials that we'll have in class are here under the sessions. Again, our 2 evidences this semester are OMA and skip. And that's pretty much it. Questions you have for me on the overview before we start diving into the OMA tonight? We're actually a couple minutes ahead. I can't believe it. Any questions? Are you, as Don Henley would say, are you with me so far? Anybody know what that musical reference is? That's for bonus points. Anybody know who the Eagles are?
You're funny. I had a question about the discussion board post again. So when I was looking at the first one, I guess the reason I had a question about it, so it had the reading that goes with it and then the activity. But the reading pages don't have anything to do with the activity. So are they separate? Am I just reading? And then
Yeah, just make sure you've read those pages is the reference.
okay, so when I'm evaluating our emergency plan, what am I basing that evaluation on? Like, am I just saying it's all there, or?
Just make sure that you've read, again, that chapter that's contained in that. These page numbers move according to different ones. Just make sure that in the chapter where that's referenced is you read what the content of an emergency plan ought to be.
Okay, so the page numbers may not be right, so I just need to try to
That's,
find them.
we're using second, third, and fourth editions,
Okay,
and we're
Okay.
lucky to find them for whatever
Okay.
reason.
okay.
Thank you. That's a great
Mhm.
question. Nobody knows that reference, the Eagles, the name of that song? Life in the Fast Lane. Are you with me so far? All right, this is this semester, this is Life in the Fast Lane, folks. Well, there's our resident expert that just joined us. I'd like to welcome Dr. Renita Griffin Jordan. Dr. Jordan, as I told you, is principal at City of Medicine High School in Durham Public Schools. Dr. Griffin Jordan is our expert. So every week when I tell you something and y'all are looking at me kind of like when you whistle at a dog and you're thinking, that can't be right. Well, she's the referee. She's the expert. She does this for a living every day. And she will tell us, yeah, Dale's right. I know it's hard to believe, or he's full of hooey. She'll tell you, but she'll tell you the real deal. And again, four times this semester, she's going to lead class. I'll just start us off. We'll review our activity, and she'll lead us because, again, she does it every day. This is relevant. I always have somebody with me. Dr. Griffin Jordan has been with me before, and Dr. Sane will be with me tomorrow night. I always, and both of them are, it's not their first time, but I always have a resident expert. Again, this is an operations course. This is reality. This is how you run a school. Nobody better to tell you. It's been a day since I did it, folks. Look at me. It's been a day since I did it. I have not been a school principal in 23 years. Been 23 years since I was a school. Now, I was one for a long time, but it's been 23 years since I was one. Now, I supervised them for another, 10 or 12 at various levels, but now I hadn't been in the building as one in 23 years. She does it every day. Dr. Griffin Jordan, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Lamb. As he said, he is an expert as well. He's going to tell you like it is. He puts a very interesting twist. I love hearing him talk about the experiences that you'll go through because he puts it just like it is. So I can appreciate that. I am Renita Griffin Jordan. I am the principal at City of Medicine Academy here in Durham. I have been an administrator since 2015. I took over as principal here at the City of Medicine in 2021. So I'm going almost 2 years here now. I look forward to sharing my experiences with you all. Before administration, I was a school counselor, thought that was going to be it. I was a counselor for probably about 15 years before I switched over to administration. And before that, I was a teacher for 4 or 5 years. Again, I am available to you. No question is too big or too small. I sat where you are. It wasn't too long ago. And I was fortunate that I had experienced people to answer my questions and to help me along. You can't do it alone. Even in my position, when you're a principal or when you're an assistant principal, you're not going to be able to do it alone. You're going to have a team. You're going to have people that you can always go to. I still have people that I go to and shoot things off of, and we just consult. It's a continuous. As long as they continue to change rules, you're going to have to continue to have a team to discuss to make sure you're on the right track. So we're here to help you do that. I apologize for being late. We had our semester awards night tonight and it just ended. So I look forward to being with you again. Let me know if there's anything I can do to support you. Thank you, Dr. Lamb.
Thank you, Dr. Griffin Jordan. She's too kind, but she's the real deal, folks. This is a person who can answer questions for you and who you can confide in and you can work with. Now, you say, but I've got administrators at my building, and I hope that you have that kind of relationship with them, or I hope that you can develop that kind of relationship with them. But sometimes you haven't, or you can't, or you haven't yet. And that's what she's here for. You know, I'm always available. I never sleep. I'm old. But you know, she does this, and she's really good. Yeah, I don't know if it's the counseling background or she's just a quality person, but students tend to gravitate to her, and she can help you a lot when you have questions, if you have issues. Don't hesitate. All right, so let's talk about the OMA. People ask me all the time, what's the point of the OMA? Is it to build a master schedule, duty roster, and supervision schedule? And I say no. The point is to build a legal master schedule, duty roster, and supervision schedule. We could flag cars down out, you know, on Central Avenue, and build and have them build one, but it won't be legal. Please understand that two things happen every month. It happens automatically now. We don't even have to push a button anymore. Two things happen that leave a school each month. The first one is the PMR, the principal's monthly report. That's attendance. Why does that matter? Well, because we don't fund schools based on how many kids are enrolled. We fund schools based on how many attend. So let's say you've got a nice round number of 1,000 kids enrolled at your school, but this month your attendance was 95%. That means that only 950 attended this month. Guess what happens? They subtract that 5% or those 50, you don't get paid for them that month. Understand that when state sends money to schools, they don't send it all at the beginning of the year in a lump sum. That per pupil, that $8,000, you know, state of North Carolina, the state of South Carolina sends $8,000 a year to you know, to Cumberland County to educate a child. They don't send $8,000, and they don't send it at the beginning of the year. They send it in 10 installments of 800, and they subtract attendance from that. So principal's monthly report goes in, so that's very important. And that's how you get your money. Now, the second thing that goes in that's most relevant to us in the OMA is the school activity report, SAR. What is a school activity report? Well, it's your master schedule. It has to be sent to the state every month. What are they checking for? Well, they're checking for class size limits. They're checking for teacher certification. They're checking to make sure that Carnegie units, that kids are taking the right courses in the right sequence. They're checking for highly qualified. They're checking all of those things through your master schedule. That's school activity report. There's a lot of laws that go along with that thing. There's a lot of federal laws, especially all of your EC programs. They're governed by federal law. You've got all your state law on the length of classes and the number of days, and highly qualified teachers and teacher certification. You've got a lot of local board policy on, you know, how many, like in elementary school, how many minutes of reading every day, how many minutes of math, how many minutes of science, all of those things. That's local board policy. And you know, then you've got your best practices. Best practices is your performance data, like EVOS, or in South Carolina, either EVOS or student learning outcomes, SLOs, that says this teacher ought to be teaching that and not that one. And then fifth in your rationale that they'll be looking for is teacher input. So that's how a master schedule is put together. Federal law, state law, local board policy, best practices or performance, and then teacher input. In that order, always, every time. Can't get it out of order. Now, I tell the story, and I'll tell you quickly tonight. I had to go down to Chinquapin. So when you go around the curve in Raleigh on 40 and you go around the outer loop and you're going from west to east. And when you go around the outer loop, you're now on 40 going north to south. You turn 90 degrees and head that way. Well, about halfway between Raleigh and Wilmington, you get off on 42 and head toward the coast, go across the state, kind of in no man's land. True story. Your GPS will just spin. You don't even know where it is. Don't know. It's out in the middle of nowhere. I got there to visit my intern. I had to wait an hour. Principal was, they were having a Title I audit. Title I's federal program. We'll talk about that in just a minute. I had to go back 2 weeks later and meet the new principal. You don't misspend federal money but one time. And he had forgotten that federal law comes first, teacher input comes last of the 5. He let the 3rd grade teachers talking him into splitting up and leveling the class sizes, because all the 3rd grade teachers were mad because the Title I teacher only had 10 and they had 30. So they leveled them all out and they put non-Title I kids in the Title I teacher's class. You don't do that but one time. So we start first by, when we start in OMA Task 1, first thing we look for is we look for our federal programs, because that's the thing that we're going to be looking. What federal programs do we have at our school? And so understanding that so what are federal programs? It's like Title I, CTE, English as second language, all of your exceptional children's programs. All of those are federal programs. Title I, it's a difference between there's a difference between being a Title I school and having a Title I program. Percentage of free and reduced lunch. In a Title I school, doesn't matter what kids are in what room, you spend all the money on every kid in the building. If you're in a Title I program school, you can only spend Title I money on Title I kids. And you can't put non-Title I kids in a Title I teacher's room in those schools. If you do, it won't go well for you. And so let's start looking at what they're asking us for. So now what I have made for you to go along with this. And so when we look at, the OMA, so I've made you a template, but again, remembering gradual release, intentional abandonment, whatever you want to call it, your template's not going to be nearly as fleshed out as it was. It's just basically going to be the directions this time. Now I've highlighted this part. So let's look at OMA Task 1. The contextual analysis is simply analysis of a school that helps us to assess that organization within the context of its historical, environmental, and cultural setting, but also in terms of the qualities that characterize the organization. So what they're asking us to do in the prompt of Task 1, the candidate will research and develop analysis of school context, internal and external. All right, external context. All right, what we're looking for there is we're going to start out with that school profile from whatever accrediting agency that we have, where it talks about the average income, the average education, maybe some history of the community. We're going to start that. That's external. Internal is all the stuff that's on the report card. So we're going to look at district, state, and federal policy law. So we're going to look for all of our federal programs. We're going to have our master schedule, our duty roster, our supervision schedule. These are all things that we pull together. All right. You know what a master schedule is. That's for all your courses, who teaches what, where, and when. A duty roster is during the day, during the active school day, who's on bus duty, who's on car duty, who's on cafeteria duty. And then supervision schedule is who's on duty after school at the after school activities. So those are the things, you got to pull all those things together. Equitably and transparency. That's your handbook and all of those things, and your rosters, that meets that definition. You got to do an audit of all the federal programs in your building. Title I, EC, your intervention program, CTE, English as second language, whatever you call that, and gifted. Those are all your federal programs. You got to tell us what you got and what they're supposed to get. Because remember, when we start scheduling in school, that's the first thing we look at when we start building our schedule. And then the last thing in task 1 is to look at what part does the school's improvement team play in the budgeting process. If your school, that's part of that transparency and equity as well. If your school, why in the world do we develop a school improvement plan if we don't fund it? The whole notion here is the school improvement team should have a major role in that school budget, because here's my PowerPoint. The path to school improvement, the cornerstone, the two cornerstones are the master schedule and the school budget that support the school improvement plan. Who develops the school improvement plan? That would be the school improvement team. If they don't have a seat at the table when the budget is done, how are we sure that the budget is going to support the priorities of that plan? Last semester, you had 2 priority items that you came up with. One was academic, a program to improve academics you did in the app cell. We got to pay for that, whatever it costs. Then you did a professional growth plan where you're going to get staff development for your teachers. Got to pay for that. We can write all these wonderful plans, but if we don't fund it, not going to happen. Or if we don't schedule our school around it. So our goal is better reading scores, but we didn't put any extra time for reading in our master schedule. Well, then why would we expect improvement? Our master schedule and our budget are there to support those academic plans that we made last semester. So I put this PowerPoint under OMA materials. And so here are the things you need to gather up. You need your report card from South Carolina report card or North Carolina report card, your EVOS data, your school improvement plan, your master schedule, your duty roster, supervision schedule, teacher working condition survey or cognitive survey in South Carolina, and your latest accreditation report. Your latest accreditation report will give you that external context about your community, have all those average house cost of a house, average education, average income. All right. And so again, here's your rationale. We're going to look at our federal programs. As I told you, we're going to look at state law, Board of Education, best practices, and teacher input when we're building a master schedule. So don't forget these things. Here are your federal programs that you need to audit. Exceptional Children 504 Intervention Team Referrals. That would be MTSS, by the way. Title I, are you a school or a program? Big difference. English is second language. I don't care what the abbreviations are, what the initials are, whether it's ELS, ELL, ELP, ESA, or I don't care. Whatever your English is second language, that's federal. Gifted is federal, and so is CTE, Career and Technical Education. All right. That's your federal. We're looking at those things. All right. State law addresses class size limits, highly qualified teacher, teacher licensure, days, hours, minutes of instruction, planning time, duty free time, teacher work days. That's why we need to see those duty rosters and supervision schedules. Okay. 3, this is the kind of thing that the local Board of Education policies are about. And I've got one that I'll show you here just 1 second. These are usually double secret, but I've got a copy of one that I smuggled. Daily schedule, all those different things, hours of instruction, special programs, clubs, organizations, assessments. And they've usually put it together for you on a sheet. Let's see if I've got this here. So. Like this, and these, by the way, are not to be given out. This one's from Guilford County. It's got a few days on it, so I can show it. This is their list of non-negotiables that they give out to their principals. Again, these are not for public consumption. These are all the things that they have to do in that local policy. You know, this initiative, that initiative, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. Again, you have all these local policies. That has to be the next thing that you get into when you're doing your schedule. If I were to make that one a little bit bigger, It says, you know, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. Let's see. Increase the percentage of students in this, we're gonna reduce gap. All elementary school will implement foundations. And where's their way? That's what I'm talking about. Any kind of programs like that, they'll tell you that. A minimum of specials, how much balanced literacy, how much reading. These are the kinds of things they'll tell you what your bell schedule will do. This is, I mean, and they don't, as you can see, they don't just suggest, they tell you exactly what the local policy on all this stuff will be. You can look at this, it's under this week's or under OMA. You can look at this one and see what that's all about. But the whole notion here is, let me go back to this. This is local board. These are the things that they will address. And then you'll look at your performance data in terms of how well kids do versus the teachers. Do they make growth? North Carolina, it's EVOS. South Carolina, some districts are still using EVOS. They all use student learning outcomes. And, you know, do you get best, you know, do you work real well with high kids, low kids? I mean, are there gaps? Those kinds of things. You know, you got to look at that EVOS data. I mean, every big whiteboard that's gridded off with stickies with some teacher's name on them, somebody had to write that name. Why'd you write that name? Why are they teaching that course and not that course? And then last is teacher input. So back to task 1. Those are the things that you will fit in right here under this first. Now, don't get nervous. That is a lot. I understand that. You got 2 weeks to put this together because OMA task 2 is simply a copy and paste of APTEL task 1, 2, and 3 with the labels removed. Takes about 3 or 4 minutes. So you get 2 weeks to do OMA task 1. It's a lot of stuff to pull together, isn't it? Look at that example in there. Look at Dr. Robertson's notes. Dr. Robertson, he's a professor. He was principal in Charlotte forever, worked with him. He's wrote you a set of notes, this, you know, like old Dale's notes, Mark's notes. He's got you a set of notes. You got an example to look at. You've got 2 weeks. Start pulling all your stuff together. Look at that PowerPoint. Tells you all the stuff you got to start pulling together. Now, task 2 takes, I mean, literally minutes because it's just a copy and paste of the work you did last semester. Task 1, 2, and 3 of the APTEL, the second one that you did. Then task 3 is developing a new schedule or revisions to the existing one, and then you write your competencies in 4. This is not rocket science, folks. Once you get this all together, it goes very fast. Skips the same way. These go a lot faster because you know what you're doing now. And so 90% of the work on this one is in that task 1. After that, it's really easy. But you got to pull all that stuff together. You got to talk. You might have to go ask people, what federal programs do we have? What are the kids are supposed to be getting in these programs? Might take a little time to pull this stuff together, especially that audit of your federal program. What that means is, what do we got and what are they supposed to get? People say, what does an audit mean? What federal programs do you have, and what does the federal law say that these kids are going to get? That's what we have to address in our master schedule. And you know them EC parents. Well, they'll be on you. And I don't mean a little bit. You're not going to shortchange them. So you better understand that your federal programs come first for a reason. Them people have no sense of humor whatsoever. And will sue you at a drop of a hat. So you better know that. I'm not making light of them or making fun of them, but now if you know that they have a proclivity to stay in court all the time, then that better be first on your list. That, you know, this is an IQ test not for them but for us. You know, what's important? Well, they'll tell, you know, I'm telling you what's important. It's got to go this way. Because if you don't meet the obligations that the federal government said you will to these protected class of students, boy, their people come after you with knives in a hurry. You better know that. You better understand that. So that's first on your list. making sure that when you're scheduling, those programs are scheduled first and that they get what the federal government is paying you to give them. That's exactly right. All right. We're right on time. Imagine that. I'm just as surprised as you are. I've had a great time tonight. We'll talk more next week again about the OMA, and we'll talk a little more about case studies. Again, don't panic. You got 2 weeks to get, task one knocked out. You can knock it out faster than that's fine. If you need something, look at the materials that I've got under the OMA, and it'll explain it to you again. It's all there. And I tell you what, some of you are going to come back really surprised. You're going to find out things about your school that you never imagined. And that's a good thing. That's not bad. All right. Again, Dr. Griffin Jordan, thank you again for joining us tonight. She'll be a big help, and I'm looking forward to her lesson. She does a great job with those this semester. We'll have a big time. We'll have some laughs if nothing else. So I will see you all again next Tuesday. Again, nothing's due this Monday. Nothing's due this Sunday night or Monday. You get 2 weeks. But if you want to turn something in, I'm always here. I'll be glad to read it for you. Okay. I'll see you next Tuesday. Y'all be safe.
Bye. Take care, everybody.
Again, all right. Thank you for choosing Gardner Webb as always.
Have a good night.